Hello, I'm Hannah Bonczkowski, and welcome to this edition of Campus Views, coming to you from the video studio production here on the campus of SUNY Cobleskill. This is a student-powered production of the spring 2020 semester COMM 240 Introduction to Studio Production class. Our guest today is Phyllis Van-Amburgh, and on this edition of Campus Views, our topic is organic grass-fed dairy farming. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Hannah.
So my first question for you is, can you just tell us a little bit about Dharma Lea and how you started it?
Sure. Dharma Lea is a 100% grass-fed organic dairy farm, and it's me and my husband Paul and our 5 children, mostly grown. They're like 16 to 26. And we're just north of Cobleskill here, about 4 miles outside of town. We started just easing into farming, and one thing sort of led to another, and raising hogs and pigs in a big garden, and then beef cows, and then chickens, and then we had a family cow. And Paul and I wanted to quit our jobs, so there was a dairy farm for sale nearby, and we jumped in.
And what inspired you to focus on being organic and grass-fed?
Probably, if it was one thing, I would say it's like Weston A. Price. And my job before dairy farming, I was an occupational therapist, and I worked with preschoolers. And there were a lot of nutritional and environmental factors to developmental delays. And so we really started thinking about where our food came from. And the grass-fed and the dairy part sort of was on the heels of grass-fed beef, because Joe Robinson's book, she talked about the difference between grain-fed and grass-fed beef in terms of the fat profile. And we thought, well, that's probably true in dairy. Turns out it is. And yeah, that's sort of what led us there.
And what do you do to ensure that your practices of organic and grass-fed remain sustainable?
One of the things we did is we had a heavy hand in developing the grass-fed dairy standard. And that is, a lot of the requirements are based in holistic management. So we're big holistic management practitioners. And the gist of that is all of the things you do center around a future resource base. So it steers you away from making immediate decisions, and, helps you look into the future and the future that you want to create. And grazing is part of that. So the grazing requirement for the grass-fed standard is one that sort of requires you to really learn how to work with the ecosystem.
I see.
Yeah.
And thanks to our guest, Phyllis Van-Amburgh, and we'll be right back with more Campus Views right after this. Stay with us.
I don't think that many kids in my son's school even do it.
He makes fun of his friend who vapes.
He would never try it.
She's into soccer.
She's on the honor roll.
She's just not the type.
No way.
No way.
No way.
No way, my kid would never vape.
Get your head out of the cloud. Today, nearly 8,000 kids will start vaping. Maybe even yours. Learn about the dangers at talkaboutvaping.org.
The communications program here at SUNY Cobleskill are helping to prepare the next generation of media professionals. You can help us do that by supporting the SUNY Cobleskill College Foundation. Your tax-deductible contributions help students gain real-world, hands-on experience in media content creation and journalism, just like what we're bringing you here right now on Campus Views. Hello, I'm Hannah Bonczkowski, and welcome back to this edition of Campus Views from the video production studio here on the campus of SUNY Cobleskill. Again, our guest today is Phyllis Van-Amburgh, and we're talking about organic grass-fed dairy farming on this edition of Campus Views. Thanks for staying with us. Well, another question for you is, what does a typical day look like for your cows?
It depends a little on the season, but most of the time they wake up in the morning after a little rest, and they come in for milking, and takes a couple of hours. Actually, it's only about 5 minutes for each cow. They have a very light workload. And then out to a pasture, they get a new fresh sward of grass, and they hang out there for the afternoon and come back in, another 5 minutes of work for milking, and then back out to the pasture at night. In the wintertime, we have a giant hoop barn that is like a little cow palace, and they go in and out to there instead of the pasture, but they get fed fresh silage, and the mother cows, before milking, when they come in, they go over and have playtime and nursing time with their calves before they go into milk, and that's the ones that are raising heifers and bulls.
And you spoke a little bit about this before, but how do seasonal changes affect your work?
This time of year, we're really, there's certain times of year that we're putting up a lot of feed. So because we're 100% grass-fed, there's a lot of hay and silage that needs to go up. And that happens a lot in the spring. Sometimes we have a little bit of reseeding, so there's field work. So we do some planting and things like that, rock picking. And then in the wintertime, actually, we do some work with the other farmers in our market, and we do regional meetings so that there's some travel in there for me too.
And then my last question for you is, what are your future goals for whether that be Dharma Lea, grass-fed in general? Just tell me a little bit about that.
Right now, we have a very real goal of handing over the farm to our 5 kids, which are eventually going to be 5 families. So that's kind of a hefty lift, and they're still young enough where they're trying to learn them what they want out of life, but passing the torch, that's the next thing, so that this dairy can continue in one form or another, or just the farm, even if they decide not to dairy.
That's perfect. Well, that about wraps up our show here on Campus Views. I'm your host, Hannah Bonczkowski. Thanks to our guest, Phyllis Van-Amburgh, for taking the time out to chat today. For more information about the 2- and 4-year communications programs here at SUNY Cobleskill, visit www.cobleskill.edu today. You can also find us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Just search for SUNY CoBComm on any of those platforms. You can also search #SUNY CoBComm too. Once again, I'm Hannah Bonczkowski, and thanks for watching this edition of Campus Views from SUNY Cobleskill.